want to thank you so much for coming on today. You are so amazing. I just want to say this because you talk about your trauma and you're an amazing actress. I've watched a lot of your stuff growing up, and as basically a teenager watching 90210, that was really just a lot, watching a drama and then just having it be an outlet for me to, just escape from my own traumas. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know you.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you very much. And I appreciate that you're using your platform to continue this conversation and be so open and transparent as well. I, I guess to give a little context, I am a trailer park kid who had a pipe dream at 9 years old to grow up and be an actress one day. And everyone said that was never going to happen. So I told them to go fuck themselves and did that. Um, I was homeschooled my entire education. So what everybody's been dealing with COVID, I'm an expert on that of doing school in my bedroom. Poor parents. But I was able to, as a result of homeschooling, I was able to graduate early. I worked through the summers during kind of into middle school, into high school, and graduated by the time I had turned 15. And I left home, became completely independent financially and otherwise on my own. I moved to Miami and was able to save up some money and go study acting in New York because that was my dream. I was in New York for about 3 years until I turned 18 and decided to try my luck in Los Angeles. And I've been here for 15 years now or more. How long have I been here? Yeah. Going on 16 years. But yeah, so I had this, Cinderella story, had some anxiety and depression and suicidality and self-harming, but that's all the normal stuff, right? I mean, I didn't think that
Yeah.
was a big deal. Everybody cuts themselves. I don't say this in a laughing way, other than that I've found a morbid sense of humor with all that I've been through, because at this point it's just like, what are you going to do? Cry all the time? No, I'm not. That's not Annalynne. So I find a way to make light of my own circumstance. I don't take it lightly what other people are dealing with, but for me, I gotta find the light and head on out of that dark space. So I moved out to Los Angeles. I quickly landed a role on the show Nip Tuck, and then following that, 90210. And I was on 90210 for 5 years. I broke into the business. I proved everybody wrong. I did the thing. I got it all right. I was successful, and I was miserable. And I had a very, very dark life on that I hid from all of the flashing lights and cameras. And it would be a decade of hiding my life before I would discover what really happened to me, and why this kind of hidden life was so devastating. And that came when I started experiencing PTSD and underwent a treatment called EMDR. So I post traumatic stress disorder, and I started treatment with a doctor who offered eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, which I'm sure is an
Yes.
incredible treatment for survivors who have PTSD, survivors of any kind of abuse or trauma, little t, big T. But it is specifically used for war veterans. That was actually the original usage of EMDR was for veterans coming back from war and dealing with severe PTSD from everything that happens over there. And that's the number one treatment for veterans, and it's become very popular for survivors of domestic and sexual abuse. I went to 2 intake sessions with the doctor, and the first treatment I remembered my entire life. And apparently I was a survivor of childhood abuse. And I remember laying there with just tears streaming down my face, not not the way you would imagine it, not in terror or not like devastated. I was heartbroken. And I just kept shaking my head to my doctor. I was like, no, no, this is not my story. I I fight this issue. I I just laid there and kept shaking my head. No, 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 this didn't happen to me. No, this didn't happen to me. No. And it was very hard to get hit in the face because, we tell these lovely stories about ourselves, right? In the
Yeah.
last 5 minutes, you just heard me completely encapsulate my whole life. You missed a lot. I tried to cover the main points. But what are the main points, right? What we do, what people say about us, what they write about us, what people think about us, or who we truly are. And who are we? Are we what we experience? Are we what we do and say in the world? I I suddenly in this one moment in a 90-minute session with my doctor had gone from 31 years of a life of a story I knew to 90 minutes of a story that couldn't possibly be mine. And I couldn't wrap my mind around how that was even like how I had it all together. Like I
Yeah.
help kids who have this problem. This didn't happen to me. And I think that what it did was the disillusionment that followed made me question one thing in particular, and that was, who am I? Who am I? Really and truly, who am I? Am I this woman who lived this story for 31 years, or am I this person who just got the most earth-shattering information about her life in 90 minutes? 3 decades or 90 minutes, which one was true? And the answer would not come then, but it did come. And I'm neither of those women. I'm both of those women. I am all and I am nothing. I'm a part of everything, but I'm not any one thing. And that means I'm not any one story. I'm not any one incident that occurred to me. I'm not a lifetime of incidents that have occurred to me. I am the essence you're experiencing now in voice or video format. But that I'm the consciousness within. And through this process, I've kind of, started to realize that, wow, I get to be the writer of my own script. I had a script that I lived by for 31 years. I had a new script thrown at me for 90 minutes in a treatment session. And now every day I wake up and every moment I'm the author of a new story, of a new me, a serpent that gets to just shed her skin constantly as she grows and learns more wisdom. And so, yeah, that's me in a nutshell. But otherwise, I wouldn't know how to define me.
Well, I love that so much. And I love that you're still, it sounds like you're very spiritual. And I've checked out your page and I love a lot of the breath work, a lot of the meditation that you do. Can you talk about what it took to heal from, all those traumas besides doing EMDR therapy and whatnot?
So yeah, I appreciate that question and that acknowledgement. Yes, I have found spirituality and I was moving in that direction, which was really interesting because when I found this little inward journey beginning for me around age 25. So I had been on that journey for 6 years and thought I was pretty much fixed. I was an enlightened ego, as they say, but I was like, I'm having a little PTSD. I'm just gonna like run into the doctor real quick for like 3 weeks or so, and then I'll be fine. That is not what happened. I had a whole new level of spirituality smack me in the face, and it what came into question was what I knew in my mind versus what I know in my heart. And that journey looked like ah! Me on my bathroom floor screaming and crying in a hot mess because healing and rebirth and renewal and all of that is not a pretty sight. I don't care what they try to sell you in these self-help books. It's not pretty, it is not fun. It is absolutely worth it, but it ain't cute. So
Oh, yeah, I
I
agree.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not for the faint of heart. If you want healing, if you want to be on the other side of a lot of these things and understanding that life is always a journey and a spiral, not a straight line, you gotta commit. And I've had FOC problems my whole life. I've always had fear of commitment. So this was the one thing that I threw everything, all that I am into. And one of the first most profound steps that really, really started to create almost an immediate difference in my experience was when I discovered breath work. And it's amazing, something that's completely free. It's just the air we breathe.
Oh yeah.
And I began doing pranayama breath work, holotropic breath work. Yes, I see your face is like,
I'm
yes,
like, I did some today at hot yoga.
yes, amazing. So I do that almost every day to this day. But when it began, your body is like, no, I don't want to do this, because it knows there's that consciousness within, and it knows you're about to go to hell. And it is not like, I don't want to go to hell. Like, no, I don't know. Don't do breath work. Don't do that. Don't do that. We're going to feel bad. You feel there's a lot of resistance, I noticed, and I push through that resistance the way they talk about being in the gym. And like when your muscles start to feel that point of no return, push further, and then you start that transformation of the body. For me, I'm at the brain gym. So I was like, I'm going to push my mind to that next level. I'm going to push my emotional self, my mental self, my spiritual self to go beyond, to transcend this pain and this suffering and this constant anxiety and depression and questioning and unworthiness and all of those things that you feel, whether you've been through severe trauma or your mom threw money at you and was at work and didn't see you because she thought if she bought you everything you were good. And there's all kinds of versions of how we view in our little bodies, in our little child selves, how we view our childhood experiences, and they can be traumatic even if they're not abusive or something necessarily quote unquote extreme. So yeah, a lot of breath work, a lot of inner child work. So in that process and in the process of EMDR, I met my little selves. There were quite a few of them. I would then be diagnosed with DID, dissociative identity disorder, and realized that I was experiencing a lot of Annalynne. And they looked and sounded different. They could take control of my face, my facial expressions, my voice, my vocabulary, my body language, and they would express as me, but from a different time. And one of the things that I recently was speaking out about it with, kind of going public about having dissociative identity disorder and living with it and what it looks like, I really wanted to debunk some of the ridiculous, preposterously insane myths that suggest that, on Thursday at 4 p.m., I become a British woman who needs her tea at high noon, like,
Yeah.
no, that's not what it is. Multiple personality disorder has the name has been altered in the Diagnostic Statistics Manual for the very specific reason that it was an incorrect name to begin with. It should never have been called multiple personality disorder, because a personality is as if you are a different human. This dissociative identity disorder is my disassociation from my own identity, and therefore these fragmented parts of my identity, all of which are me, all are parts of the identity of Annalynne. They just couldn't all coexist. They couldn't all be there at the same time. And they arose, and some of them were more prominent, and some of them were really intense because of the need to protect me. They all were born out of the need to protect Annalynne from all that Annalynne went through. And so I am grateful to those fragmented parts for as long as they needed to exist, how they protected me. I'm grateful to have worked doing all of this spiritual work to find integration with my doctor and with my practices. So now I do breath work, I do mystic work, I do ice baths, which is something that a lot of people are like, wait, what? I'm actually doing a podcast interview next week with Wim Hof, the breathwork ice bath cold exposure guru. He's like unbelievable, but he has really tapped into something about what our bodies are capable of. He was hiking a mountain in the north of Europe, northern European states and countries rather. But he got a phone call a satellite call that his wife, the love of his life, mother of his 4 children, had committed suicide. He had to come off the mountain, get back to Spain, became a single dad of 4 children overnight, and dealt with all kinds of depression and anxiety and all of these things. And through that, he found a return, because he's a Scandinavian man. He's used to the cold, but he realized that a return to the cold in a really conscious and conscientious way would go on to be the thing that would help heal his anxiety and actually build this unbelievable immune system, where he's been tested, like being injected with E. coli and suppressing the suppressing the bacteria. Not like no symptoms register. With his own breath and his own mind, he's become so powerful in his energy that he can do these things. And the doctors are like, you're superhuman, like you're an anomaly, this is not possible. He's like, no, I am not. I can teach this to anybody. And he's like, they're like, how many years do you need to teach this to someone? This is crazy. And he's like, give me 10 days. And then he's like, it took 4 days.
Oh my
And he
gosh, I
had
love that.
literally had 18 people. He trained them, had them climb up a snowy mountain in shorts and like no shirts. Like, I mean, I think the women had shirts, but he they all were able to be injected with E. coli by doctors and scientists and monitored, and they all suppressed 100% track record, all suppressed the bacteria. None of them had symptoms. None of them, their immune system was so powerful. So I was like, okay, I am sold on that. And that has taken I feel like my mental wellness to
Okay.
a whole nother level. I mean, that actually shifted things that I feel like, obviously energy is a part of everything in our whole world. It is our world. It's our sun. It's our moon. Everything is made of energy. And you feel a vibe with people. You walk in a room,
Yeah.
you can tell someone's energy is a certain way, and you're like, this is not cool, or, oh, this is super fun. And energy is a part of everything, and it is everything. And when energy, I always say the universe doesn't speak English, it speaks energy. It speaks,
Yeah.
electromagnetic frequencies. And my water bottle has an energy. You could measure it with a device that measures energy. You can measure the field of my water bottle or my iPhone or whatever. So I started to notice after doing the ice baths that I was attracting different things. Like for example, all of a sudden, like 2 months into doing it, I realized, have I eaten meat in the last 2 months? It wasn't a conscious decision. I love a cheeseburger. Like I'm like little Miss Triple at In-N-Out. So I was with my friend. I was like, I don't think I've had a cheeseburger in like 2 months. And it was just like all of a sudden these realizations that there was something, I had done something in my field, and the energy that I was putting out was bringing back a different energy. I was eating more whole vegetables and just enjoying the process of slicing my veggies and making a salad or whatever it was. And I wasn't like trying to be on a diet. That has just never worked for me. Like, I'm like, that is not it. Like, I'm good at a lot of things. Dieting is like saying no to me. It's like a really bad idea. I'm just definitely going to do whatever you say no, you know? So that transitional point really showed me that when we start paying attention to our bodies, our energy field, the consciousness within our minds, we actually are sending a message out, a vibration out that says, bring in more good. And I've noticed I've never pulled in more work. Like I meditate every day. I do breath work almost every day. I do ice baths very, very frequently. I have never been called and offered more work like that, like just out of the blue, just money flying at me, flying at my organization. I'm like, this whole law of attraction thing, it is a real thing, but it's not the way it's described. It's not the way that we assume it is, that like, oh, if you think about something and you attract it, does not work at all.
Oh yeah.
It's setting the intention of a better life and then being in the vibration of love or gratitude or compassion or in any of Dr. David Hawkins, actually, he talks about the calibration of high level emotions, high elevated emotions versus emotions that make us less magnetic, like anger and envy and guilt and shame. And I started existing in this place where I was in acceptance, I was in joy, I was in compassion, I was in love, I was in gratitude. I was saying thank you for things that I hadn't received yet. I'm like, thank you for that $10,000 hit I'm about to get in my banking account. And then I get called and I'm like, I actually had a moment where someone literally donated $50,000 to my kids in Cambodia. And I had been saying thank you for this money that's coming to my kids, and thank you, thank you, thank you. And that was a new thing. And we've never received $50,000. We've received, maybe a $20,000 donation was the biggest. And we were like, holy shit. But this was crazy. And I think, we just don't give enough credit to the energy that we exist in and the energy we put out and what that says to the universe and what can or can't come back to us. So while I was in my trauma, while I was in this, even not knowing that I had this underbelly of trauma when I didn't remember my memories, I was putting an energy field out into the world that was pushing things away from me, pushing away love, pushing away things like abundance in all aspects, not just in finances and stuff like that. And I feel like that is all clear now, and I am bringing in the abundance. And so I'm like, I want everybody to have this.
I love that so much. So how have you been doing this retrograde? I've in two eclipses or whatever is going on right now. I have wrote like some letters to some girls I was mean to. And I released that energy and I just was like, I'm sorry for the way I treated you. I'm sorry if I made you feel ill or anything. I'm sorry for that energy. And I'm just like, releasing all this karmic energy because I'm like, I just want, I'm in a new relationship now and I'm like, I don't want anything bad in it now.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Thank you.
100%. I mean, I definitely follow all of the different energy of our universe and multiverse. There's a reason that the ancients watched the stars and watched the skies the way they did, and it wasn't just for their crops. I genuinely believe that we've lost so much, and we've gotten so out of touch with how leaders of the ancient world and the ancient civilizations were leaders because they were the highest, most elevated conscious beings in the country. And yes, when they obviously gave birth to their children, and they're, obviously there was, the passing it on based on birthright, but these, like the pharaohs in Egypt, I mean, they schooled the future pharaoh from day one, literally, like, welcome to the world, baby. Like, you need to prepare for being a high level initiate, an elevated conscious being, because it's your responsibility to create the energy of the country and move it forward during your reign. We do not do that as leaders in this world today. We are so sad.
No, we don't.
It's like how many more politicians do we find hiding a secret life? And it's like, where are we leading from? We're leading, I love the Vedic tradition and all of the chakra systems and focus on the energy centers of the body. And I like to think of when you're going through the journey of life, you start out and the root chakra is kind of the lower energy center of the body, is your survival, right? You're just trying to survive. The
Yeah.
second energy center is your sacral chakra, and that is your ability to create in the world, your ability to create life, your ability to procreate,
Your intuition also.
all of that. Yeah. And then the third is your solar plexus, your sense of I am, who you are in the world, your sense of power. But those are base needs, right? Like survival, sexuality, and power. And if we lead with those three chakras, we're kind of in up shit's creek, you know what I mean? Like, and so much of the world, if you look at it, it's like survival, sex, and power, money, sex, power, and this kind of like, it's all used in a really dark and nasty way. All you need to do is take those three base energy centers and go one step further because the fourth one is your heart. And take that energy through your heart, and suddenly you've transmuted this lower vibrational energy into something that can be leading to speaking your truth, your throat, the next one, your third eye, your ability to see from not just with your eyes, but to have that insight from the divine, if you will. And then your top of your head, your crown, your crown chakra, that center that's all about who you are in the world and why are you here, what is your soul's purpose. And if your listeners believe in that sort of thing, it's this, the existential always question, why am I here? To me, this has all come into my awareness, and I was very like, that was not my world. I was very science minded, and the spiritual world has really been profound, partly because I found it through science. I started studying quantum physics, and suddenly it was like, oh wow, okay, so physics is beginning to prove all of the spiritual, quote unquote,
Yeah.
stuff that the ancients have been talking about for thousands of years. So it's been really transformative. And I think that if talking about your new relationship, congratulations. That's
Oh,
awesome.
thank you.
But like,
We'll
do
see how it goes.
yeah, but putting that energy towards it, and apologizing to people that you feel like you need to make amends to, and just clearing
Yeah.
it all. I mean, that's what, for me, it's this whole process of my memories coming back and realizing, when bad shit happens to you, you aren't a little saint. The shadow comes out, and I had to do exactly what you're explaining. I had to go and I had to acknowledge who and what I was and make amends, and also embrace that beautiful dark little self and say thank you so much for all of your shadowness. I know you felt like you needed to do this. I'm going to take it from here. We're not going to go in that direction anymore, but I get it, and you did so good. You did all you knew to do with what you had, and I'm so sorry that that was all you had. We're going to move up the energy centers now into the heart. And we're going to find a new way to navigate those intense themes from light and from love, and still embodying the root and the sacral and the solar plexus, that we're still embodying that survival, that sexuality, creativity, that power space, but doing it from the ferocity or the ferociousness of love, the most powerful force in the whole universe, as Albert Einstein said. I like to quote, just a genius about that whole thing.
Well, you're very intelligent. You can tell that you have a lot of education in what you're talking about and just like knowledge on your, own mental stability and own mental health. And I condemn you for that because that's something that takes a lot of work. And it seems like you have a very high IQ too.
I mean, I'll take it. I love knowledge. Since I was a kid, I was the but why kid. But why? But why? Why does this work like this? How does it work like it? What did it? But as an adult, it's allowed life to just continue to be life school. I want to know everything about everything. And what I've started to do, instead of just consuming knowledge for the sake of consuming knowledge, I've gotten into my heart space with it, and I've gotten into tapped into that inner wisdom that we all have, and it is blocked and it is clouded over by society and culture and narratives that have just been perpetuated since the dawn of time, and they do fucking nothing for us. And it's like, I talk a lot about this because of working fighting human trafficking and modern day slavery. It's like, there are more than 48 million slaves in the world, which is what the number the UN talks about. To me, there are 7.8 billion slaves, because at any given point, every single one of us will be enslaved to a thought system in our mind. And unfortunately, our chains are invisible, but we will at any point believe we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not smart enough, we're not wealthy enough, successful enough, whatever the narrative is. And we will live a life of lack because we don't think we're enough. And that comes from all we hear all the time, all we say to children. It's like, we're constantly putting children in a little box and telling them that they need to go to college and do this and not whatever. Not to say there's anything wrong with doing any and all of those things, but why does every child have to go to college? I did not go to college. I was a millionaire by the time I was 23 years old. So even being 23 and a millionaire, doing it right, doing all that they said to do, going against the one thing that's like the American rule of college, I didn't do that. And I still got what they say that you're supposed to have that makes you happy. And I was miserable. So the algorithm doesn't work anymore. And I don't know why we're still trying to make it fit when it doesn't, it doesn't, it is not it is not mathematical. The equation that fits one individual will not work for someone else, and that needs to be embraced. The individuality, the diversity of the fact that there are a million different ways to get to an outcome of what is real success. And real success is, how do you feel when you wake up? How do you feel throughout your day? How do you feel when you go to sleep? Are you happy to be in your body? Are you happy to be here? Are you at least more happy than you are miserable? Because if you aren't, then I don't care how much fucking money you have. I don't care what you're doing. I don't care who you're married to. I don't care what car you drive. You are not a success. To me, a life lived in suffering is a life that is failing. To me, a life where suffering is a gift because it's something that you're going to at one point realize you no longer need to acknowledge. And I say that because my goddaughter had cancer, and she said, you learn things. She said these beautiful quotes, but one of the things she said was, you learn with cancer that cancer gives you time and you can't get any more time. And also that suffering is more mental, pain is more physical. We can be in pain, but suffering is a choice. Suffering is, I do not accept what I am feeling right now. I am in pain and I do not accept. Well, sorry, sweet tits, because it's happening. So as long as you don't accept it, it's gonna be real horrible for you. And that's that for me. I started to realize that my resistance was causing me suffering. I was resisting something that was. I've been in shitty relationships. I was resisting that I was in a shitty relationship. That did not mean I was leaving the relationship, which probably would have been a great idea. I did not do that. I was just resisting that it was shitty and staying in it, and it was still shitty. So what did I have to do? I had to first decide, and I love Eckhart Tolle says, you have three choices in any given moment to be able to handle a situation. You can accept it, you can change it, or you can walk away from it. I wasn't walking away from it. I couldn't change it because it's another person. And I wouldn't live in acceptance. So of course I was in suffering. When I found acceptance, I was one step closer to being able to either change it or walk away from it. Because I was now in an energetic field that was not suffering based. It's like, okay, I accept that this person drives me crazy. I also accept that I'm not willing to walk away yet. What next? Where do I go from here? And in that moment comes the lesson. The teacher appears when the student is ready, right? That's what they say. I started to notice how I created suffering in my life, in my mind, everywhere with everything. I resisted all things. And I started saying, I accept. I don't like this. I'm not excited about this, but I accept it. And suddenly the suffering started to dissipate. And when I would notice resistance or pain or something coming in, and the pain being something that like, can I accept this or not? I would ask, well, what is it about? Why is it here? Why am I sick? Why did I get the flu? Why are you here? Is there something you're here to teach me? I didn't care. I suddenly made everything a but why moment again. The little but why kid came back. And suddenly I found that I could attribute every moment in my life to a lesson if I wanted to. There was always something to learn. There was always something I could discover. And that made it easier to accept. If this was here for a reason, and I knew the reason, I,
Yeah.
okay, I can get through this. It's not going to be fun. My dark night of the soul number 932. It's not going to be, I'm not going to be enthusiastic about it, but I can do this and I'm not going to die. And I think that was a major turning point in my life, and it allowed this process of discovering my diagnosis and going through my memories coming back. I was able to accept so much of that journey because I had done that was a part of the work that I had done prior to this, and that made the last 3 years of my life so much more tolerable, but
Yeah.
also beautiful. I started to just feel like, wow, I'm being crafted and honed and recreated to be able to handle anything. And now I feel like I'm like, what can you throw at me? I mean, like, really, what can you do to me? Nothing. I've almost died. I've gone through, like, every possible thing you can imagine. Like, and I'm still here. I'm alive. I'm still kicking and I'm smiling about it. So what can you do to me?
Well, hopefully you just have the best life now because you're radiating at a different energy. You're at that different frequency. So hopefully none of that bad stuff happens because I think when you're living in this part of not accepting what happened to you, you're now having more toxic things in your life and you're getting into this toxic cycle. And until you break that and you start to be self-aware and then move into a higher frequency is like when you radiate different energy and just everything comes your way and it's like, oh wait, that life I was living, wait, what?
Like how I 100%. I think about the girl I used to know that was me back in the day, and I'm like, oh my goodness, my poor little musha. Like everything was so serious and it was so awful. But you do, I mean, you have to go through the spiral. You have to keep spiraling. And I say spiral because it's my I just graduated from Reiki 1 and 2 actually, and my Reiki teacher.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
so excited.
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm doing my master's in July. I'm really, really happy. But that has been, talk about transformative. That has been the last 6 months of my life. I don't like who I was 6 months ago is even so different than who I am today because of that journey. But my Reiki teacher is like, Annalynne, it's a spiral. It's a spiral up and up. She's so cute. She's Swedish. But she said, because we have to come back. We have to come back to the negative, to the thing, in order, so it's we learn something new, and then we have the beautiful opportunity of going through the suffering again and seeing how well we do. We have that exam, and it doesn't have to be suffering because we see it from a different point of view. And I think that's been the most profound thing to me. Not to think that you ever get somewhere to some destination. I think there's a lot of people who write books and tell lovely stories about how they've overcome and now they're great, and it's like, well, that's not possible for me. And you suddenly have this unattainable goal because in yourself, you can't just be fully, you don't reach the destination. And for me, it's like the destination is when you dead. Like when you die, that's the destination, and then it's a whole nother journey, right?
Oh
but
yeah.
um but but for me, it's like, while you're on earth, to me, earth is a school. We're on earth school. And so you're always going to have exams, you're always going to have midterms and all those little life tests. Sometimes they smack you in the face and Mercury's in retrograde and all the lovely things in the energy field are going nuts. And sometimes you're like, you know what? I got a real handle on this. Like, I'm good. And you go through and you pass that test with flying colors and you just spiral up and, oh my goodness, hi puppy.
Oh.
Your little doggy, so
She was the
cute.
one snoring. I was like pulling
Oh
her
my gosh, my
blanket to
cat does
like,
that too.
I was like,
It's
can you
so
please
cute.
not? Thank you.
No, but that's, yeah, for me, I think the spiral analogy is amazing because it really gives you that freedom to know, like, if you're leveling up also, your ego's about to double down and try to get you back. So you're really going to spiral back to that thing that's the thing you're trying to get over or transcend. And you have an opportunity to see how you even leveled up a tiny notch and celebrate that. Celebrate. We literally, my little nephew is 1 years old, and he's wobbly like a little drunk man, but he's walking now, and we're like, yay, woohoo, yeah, dude. And it's like, who the fuck claps for me when I walk? Nobody claps for me while I walk around my house. Like, what is going on? We stop celebrating. We celebrate children and their experience of life and learning something new. This is all new shit. Like learning, growing, healing, transitioning. I can't talk. Transitioning. This is like, this is worth celebration. This is worth celebrating. This is like somebody clap for me. I just leveled up. So we have to remember to do that for ourselves. We have to remember to celebrate our how far we've come, who we were 6 months ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, and know in our heart and know in the mind that we can 5 years from now be that much further along the journey, and that it is in fact a journey. We're not supposed to get there like the person who wrote the book and had a happy ever after ending. I've always said, if I write a book, I'll leave it with and dot 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 because my life is still going
Yeah,
and there's more to it.
I love that. Are you writing a book or anything?
I am beginning to write a book with my mother, actually. So she and I did not have a good relationship for 25 years, and I literally hated her, and she probably didn't appreciate that. But we reconnected, and over the last almost decade, she's become my favorite person in the world, and we are going to talk about mom having disassociation and daughter dealing with what that feels like for a child and developing disassociation herself, and kind of going through all those themes from a mother-daughter standpoint. So I'm really excited. Once I'm done with the next couple of commitments that I have, and over the next few weeks I'm going to be flying to South Carolina where she lives, and we're just going to dive in, and it's going to be intense. I know, but it's going to be a beautiful journey too, and I'm really excited.
Well, I'll be sending, good energy, healing energy, just all that for you.
Thank you so much. I received that.
You're welcome. Well, is there anything left? I feel like there's so much to talk about because I could just talk about mental health, spirituality, just everything we're talking about for hours. But is there anything you would like to share with us before I let you go?
Well, I also have a podcast. I am doing a podcast called Unzipped with my old 90210 co-star Shanae Grimes Beach, and it's been a really rewarding journey just getting the first kind of 20 episodes recorded and meeting people and talking to them and having these really real talk conversations. It's called Unzipped because we want you to come and unzip with us and be, in this space where we can talk about Hollywood drama and spill the tea, but we also dive deep with you and talk about real human life stories. And that has been really exciting because she and I hated each other, talk about like redemption. Redemption's a major theme in my life, I think. But she and I did not get along well on our show for 5 years. And then the last day we were working together, she called me and she's like, I can't believe it's all over. I'm like, you bitch, like you didn't even want to be here. What are you talking about? And I end up at her wedding in England, and we've been friends ever since. And to be able to realize that we were in our 20s, we were thrown into this crazy mess of stuff, and she dealt with her own mental health issues, and we've discussed that, and we talk about that on the podcast too. And just, God, we hold each other to such high standards, such impossible standards. And this shame culture that we're in now, it's like you can't make a mistake or you're canceled. And I just don't agree with it. I understand. I am about accountability culture, right? I am not about shame culture, and I am not about cancellation of human beings as if they can't ever come back from something. I would not want that standard held against me. And I felt it. I've definitely felt it in the world. We talk a lot about redemption and how to offer that to someone else as well as hope to receive it. We want everyone to see how we've grown, and then we don't give anyone room for how they have experienced growth. And that is something that's important to both Shanae and I. So it's been cool to do Unzipped with her. And I definitely, I would say to anyone who's dealing with any kind of mental health issues, there are obviously a lot of treatments. I strongly recommend EMDR for PTSD sufferers, connecting with a doctor, but take your healing into your own hands as well. Don't just listen to a doctor and just do whatever they say. Do your own research. Take ownership for your health, your, whether it's mental health, physical health, whatever. Know what you're doing and why is a doctor recommending this, and what is it really going to do for me? How is it going to serve me, and how is it going to possibly be a deterrent for my healing, and be aware of that. I was, put on medication for bipolar, only to be told by a doctor who scanned my brain that I don't have a bipolar brain. So find out what it is that you're dealing with, and just do your own research and have an intelligent conversation with whoever your treatment specialists are, whoever your doctors are. And outside of that, unsolicited advice perhaps, but I can't recommend enough getting into breath work and cold exposure and doing these with the conscious intent to heal the body, mind, spirit, consciousness, and soul. I mean, it is a fully well-rounded way to heal yourself, and it has transformed my life.
I went to the Amen clinic too, but I didn't get a brain scan. I just went there for therapy. But my sister got the brain scan, and it's just so I love him so much. I read why it's on my list actually. I like to tell people sometimes I do stuff and I don't.
Yes.
I'm like, it's on my list. I did it already. In my head, I
You
manifested
downloaded
I did
it.
But The Power of the Female Brain by him, and then Change Your Brain, Change Your Life.
Change Your Life. Yeah. I just finished his book, The End of Mental Illness, which is also a really amazing one. So worthy check out. Dr. Amen he's a pioneer. He's up against a lot with the Psychiatry Association, and they do not appreciate that he is telling them that they need to that they need to look at the brain before they diagnose it and give it medication and chemicals. I strongly support his advocacy for brain scans, and I really hope that we see a day very soon where insurance stops being an asshole and realizes that it's important too, because that is it's not something that everyone can have because it's expensive. And just in his book, The End of Mental Illness, he talks about a couple who were in love with each other. They loved each other so much and they were so perfect. And 8 years prior to them seeing Dr. Amen, they just their relationship started to deteriorate. And by the time they came in 8 years later, it was just like they were getting a divorce. This was it was impossible to repair the relationship. Basically, he scans the husband's brain. The wife's, he says, what he asks him a couple of things like, what's going on? Like, why the change in your personality? Do you have anything that you can think of that would have done that? And the wife is explaining that her husband had become explosive and just angry all the time and all these things. And Dr. Amen kept digging, and he's like, what changed 8 years ago? What changed 8 years ago? And at one point, the wife had said something about him getting a job 8 years ago. And he goes, what job? What does he do? What do you do? And the guy said that he worked with furniture and like building furniture and was inhaling fumes. Dr. Amen said his brain looked like a drug addict's brain. It had poisoning to the extent that it was just unbelievable. And he helped him, got his brain clear. They stayed married. His personality went back to normal. Like, it was as simple as that. Our brains are plastic. They want to heal. Our minds want to heal itself. Our bodies want to heal itself. Our brains want to heal itself. They're all connected. It's not as bleak as our mind tells us, and it isn't certainly not as bleak as society and the world would stigmatize us to believe, stigmatize and tell us to believe that it is. So I can't stress enough, get in control of your own healing process, because the more you know about what's going on with you, the more you can help your doctor in the process of helping you. And that's definitely been the journey with my doctors and my treatment, because I'm not leaving this up to anybody. I'm going to make sure I know what's going on and why I'm doing it. And, and that has been a hallmark of my healing process.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for that. And where can we find you on social media, your podcast and everything?
Yeah. So you can find me at the Annalynne McCord, and our podcast is at Unzipped Pod. And you can check us out on Instagram or Facebook or whatever. And if you're in any way, shape, or form interested in fighting human trafficking or learning more about that, you can go to www.thelovestorm.com. We launched a campaign called The Love Storm because we need to storm this planet with love. That's a big part of this, is like what my girls, survivors of human trafficking, what they've taught me more than anything was we don't have enough love on this planet, and it is inside all of us dying to break free. So we're storming the planet with love when the world opens up again, doing a global tour. And we've been doing the virtual aspect of it, but we had a 22 city tour scheduled for 2020 that did not happen. But it will be happening in the future when we're all allowed to gather and have events and travel again. But until now, you can go to thelovestorm.com and join the movement if you're interested in getting to be a part of this when we come to your city.
I love this. And donate, guys.
Yes, always. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. You are just incredible. And I just am so appreciative of this. I actually manifested you to come on my podcast. So, yes, thank you, universe.
Manifestation works, y'all.
And yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tara. I really had a great time talking with you. And again, I'm just grateful that you're using your platform in such a beautiful way. So thanks for having me.